This is a voyage into history. We are a modern crew sailing an 18th century ship, an exact replica of the Endeavour. This was the famous ship of exploration in which Captain Cook discovered the east coast of Australia in 1770. For the last 4 weeks, we've been following in Cook's very wake, taking his exact course up the Great Barrier Reef of Australia, and now we're heading across the open sea towards our destination in Jakarta, Indonesia. I am here as part of the crew, but also to watch what happens, monitor our progress as we try to master the skills required to sail this ship. We're trying to measure ourselves against Cook and his men, see how we cope with 18th century navigation, 18th century rations, and 18th century conditions. But last week, far from land, in the middle of the Timor Sea, the 21st century reasserted itself in no uncertain way.
Sorry to wake you up so alarmingly. You're probably sitting on the safest place in the world right now. What I'm going to tell you now is going to shock all of you. This morning, American time, 8:30, a 737 was flown into one of the Twin Towers at the World Trade Center in New York. It was hijacked. 20 minutes later, another airplane flew into the other Twin Tower. That one was hijacked as well. About 2 hours later, an airplane flew into the Pentagon, full of passengers, with undisclosed number of people dead. That is the fact of life. That is what is happening out in the big wide world at the moment. Other than that, we'll continue with our normal routine and keep on trucking, because there's nothing we can do.
Whilst we'd been busy chasing history, our self-imposed isolation had cut us off from our own time. Were we the only people in the world who had no real idea of what was happening out there? This terrible news would inform the rest of our voyage together. We knew the world we were going back to would be a very different place from the one we had left behind. One week later, we are still isolated from world events. But to make all matters worse, the wind has died. In this very spot on the Timor Sea, it was exactly the same for Captain Cook over 200 years ago.
Friday, 14th September, 1770. The air is very light. Breeze blew for a few hours this morning, but in the afternoon it fell calm once again. With these poor winds, we advance but slowly to the westwards.
Cook and his men were often becalmed, especially in this part of the world. They were used to it. We're not.
I'm getting frustrated. I want to get moving. We need some wind to get us going. We're putting up every bit of cloth we own to try and get us what little wind we have got to push us somewhere. I think we did an average of like a knot an hour yesterday. 24 knots in a day. It's pretty bad. Pretty slow. That's basically the current taking us.
But I really wish we were moving. It's a lot more exciting when we're going somewhere. We have more to do, and there's a lot more wind. It's a lot cooler. It's been really hot, just eating our meals and even sleeping because there's no breeze.
We're really bored. And, you know, when there's not the sort of cries of cruising along under full sail and catching fish and all this stuff, little things get to people a lot more. You know, people get really more resentful about cleaning and maintenance and stuff. But I don't know. I think it's probably split. But I definitely think that a lot of people are bored and frustrated and a bit annoyed. 3 or 4 more days of this, and everybody would be at the end of their wits.
I feel like screaming, really. It's driving me a bit mad. I just feel really claustrophobic and it's frustrating, and apparently it's just cabin fever, sort of exaggerated by being in the doldrums, but it's pretty grim.
Going slowly in itself isn't really a problem, but what it does mean is that we're out at sea for longer without getting sight of land. Now we're navigating, so I have to keep watching the compass here. We're navigating predominantly, as you know, by dead reckoning, which means that we just keep a track of what direction we're going and how far we've gone through the water. And so the longer we're out with the inaccuracies in those estimates, then the more wildly inaccurate our position gets to be.
We're trying to head west towards the island of Timor, and then onto the island of Savu, where we plan to land, just as Cook did in 1770. But our navigators have only got the maps that Cook had with him, inaccurate and incomplete, and Savu is not even on them. And that is their great challenge, to navigate with maps that are very largely just plain wrong.
And I think this just illustrates what I've known all along and what I think the crew didn't really believe. What a mystery navigation was in Cook's time, when the charts really may well have been made up by somebody who was high on hash at the time, or at least it looks like that in some cases.
Since our run from New Guinea, we can hardly tell when we are possessed of a good sea chart until we ourselves have proved it. Many charts are just wrong laid down. Former navigators needed the help in the accuracy of their journals, which the present age is possessed of. But it is not they who are wholly to blame for the faultiness of the charts, but the compilers and the publishers who publish to the world rude sketches of the navigators as accurate surveys.
So the question remains, where are we? Where's Timor?
You know roughly what we're doing. We're using dead reckoning, working out how far we've gone and in what direction during every 4-hour period. Now, one of us, somewhere along the way, recently has taken the change in longitude and added it instead of subtracting it. And it wasn't me. So we're in fact further west, nearer to Jakarta, nearer to Timor than I thought we were this morning. That's good news. This lovely map, chart, shows us, thanks John, cheers. You've seen it so many times, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, crosses getting closer together as the wind drops and the speed comes down. Saturday, this is Sunday. As you can see, we're heading towards the southern tip of this island. This island, whatever it is, which I think is Timor, and my lovely assistant doesn't.
Well, I think we're well past it, and it's not.
Well, we don't look too well past it to me. So, the only other thing is that we did measure the longitude a couple of days ago by a lunar distance method.
See, we're almost to England.
So if you want a best guess, sometime tomorrow, we'll see something lumpy. We hope.
We hope so too.
Cook and his men were becalmed in exactly this place. Joseph Banks, the principal botanist on board, felt the frustration.
Less wind today, calm, not gaining much. There was a strong appearance of very high land to the westward. However, the seamen insisted on it being clouds, an opinion which its unusual height and faintness of appearance seemed much to favour.
For us in the 21st century, all we can do is sit here and, just like Cook and his men over 200 years ago, drift on the current, waiting, hoping for wind and passing the time.
think just the sight of land, even if we can't reach out and touch it, would cheer them up a bit. Quite a few of the crew are getting a bit fed up, particularly the ones who aren't used to sailing. And when people ask me when are we going to get there, I say I'll tell them if they can tell me what the wind is going to be.
The following morning, still no wind. But just after sunrise, we notice that we have company. It's an Indonesian fishing boat, apparently completely oblivious of an 18th century ship in full sail. They're too busy catching fish, something we haven't managed for days.
They've been pulling in the line, and when they started, they were pulling, there was fish on the line. Long, thin fish. I don't know, they were kind of far away. I didn't see what they were. I would guess shark.
People start to think, what could we trade for some freshly caught fish?
We're going to see if we can swap a woman for some fish.
Oh, you volunteering?
Well, it depends how big a fish that we want. Or chickens, or even some money or some T-shirts. You never know what they might go for. Actually, it depends what they've got. Gordon, what will they... Yes, I said the chickens. What sort of fish will they have, do you reckon?
Probably sharks.
Oh, ooh.
Probably sharks.
You're going to launch the button?
Reef sharks, right? Yeah.
Take a chicken and a T-shirt and a woman and see what they want.
We're going over to get some fish and then fishermen. We're on about swapping a woman. That'll get us one fish.
Desperate seamen bartering with anyone they can find for fresh food is of course a common enough experience for sailors over the centuries. Cook was certainly anxious to procure whatever fresh provisions he could find anywhere in the South Sea.
Hold the yardarm tackle, these way your stern line.
The locals would actually come out in boats to the ship, bringing products with them to trade. Cook had a series of items on his ship specifically designed for trade, and they also improvised others. They carried various glass beads and other baubles which they thought might be of interest as ornaments to South Sea islanders. Sometimes they were, sometimes they weren't.
This is our some dried fish we got, which I'm afraid none of us found palatable at all.
So what are you going to trade in dried fish for?
So we're going to see if this might be their, some real delicacy. You never know.
Ease way, yardarm tackle.
We have no time to get our 18th century longboat in the water, so we resort to 21st century technology before the fishing boat gets too far away. But one problem we know we will face is language. The fishermen are unlikely to speak English.
How do you say we are so inept we can't catch our own fish, Mr. Indonesian fisherman? Can you swap us some fish or something?
We caught these 2 years ago.
We caught these 2 years ago and we packaged them in plastic. Yeah.
Product of Malaysia.
One of our crew, Sam, says he knows some Indonesian.
What was fish again? That's the only thing I can't remember.
Good, what's Indonesian for fish?
What's fish again? Can.
Sam has just minutes to pull together a few key words that will allow us to trade disgusting dried fish for delicious fresh fish. Meanwhile, back on the ship, Caroline continues to struggle with 18th century ingredients.
Well, I'm going to try pudding for the first time. I had a look through a few recipe books and it's not really one recipe, it's a mixture of a few. I've got in the bowl some shredded suet and some brown sugar, some flour, some baking powder. I'm going to mix some eggs into it. It won't really matter if they don't turn out perfectly. These guys are so desperate for something sweet and pudding-like, they'll love it whatever it comes out like. Okay, that's a good mix.
Selamat pagi. Apa kabar? Baik. Ikan? Ikan? You have ikan? Yeah? Pinta?
We have dry fish.
Ikan
Dry. Oh, terlalu siap lagi sare.
Some ikan?
No,
Do you have no ikan? We have t-shirts and for these as well.
Is that our ship?
Yeah?
Yes. I like.
You like?
Yeah.
T-shirts?
The dried fish got us nowhere, but 5 t-shirts won us a huge hammerhead shark. And they threw in 2 swordfish as well. They quickly sliced off the fins from the shark, actually all they wanted. Shark fin is a prized delicacy in this part of the world. Normally, they would throw the finless shark back in the sea, still alive.
Terima kasih.
Ya, sama-sama. Ambil handphone.
Is that right like that?
Handphone.
These are all the t-shirts we got, yeah? Yeah. Just on the top.
Why not? It's no. I don't think we're going to eat it. How many? Is this
We tried one more time to offload our dried fish.
No, hang on. We couldn't even give it away. No one wants this. No one on the 7 seas wants this dried fish.
Is it heavy enough?
What's the way you reckon?
Too much.
Look what we caught.
Such a waste, though.
Yeah, I think it's cruel if they throw the sharks back without killing them. And it's a waste too. It's beautiful meat.
Can you
cut the spine out? Can you cut a hole here and just kind of rip the spine out?
You made it up a bit doing that. But
Wow.
we've been eating.
That's going to freeze it, isn't it?
It's got to mainly cut out the gills and that's the back muscle there.
It's still twitching. I found that quite macabre.
Still twitching and they're cutting it?
Yeah, it was still twitching. I suppose it's just muscle reaction. Oh, God! That was horrible. It's still twitching. Oh, God, yeah, it is. Right, I'm just going to go and take the fish down and wash it. Pop some lemon and oregano and stuff like that. Give it some garlic, maybe.
Some fish we catch ourselves with hook and line and net, but some again we purchased off the natives for small pieces of cloth. Fish such as sharks, stingrays, bream, mullet, mackerel, and several other sorts.
The shark's very good. I've never actually eaten hammerhead shark before, but it's not bad at all.
Very nice. Very nice shark. Can't beat a bit of shark.
Alex, enjoying it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Always take fresh food over salt food. It's nice. It's a meaty texture. It's heavier than a lot of fish, but it's very tasty. Caroline's done a lovely job cooking it in garlic as well. Very nice.
Shark was served to the ship's company, and every man in her, I may venture to affirm, from the captain to the swabber, dined heartily upon it.
Ooh, smells good, that's for sure. Top pudding.
Very, very nice.
If I was a pudding, this is what I'd want to be.
I like a Barbara Windsor pudding.
Sorry, I've been at sea too long. Does not look good. Does not look good at all.
Up on deck, the sky is overcast, and the navigators can't get a fix on the moon, so they can't establish our position in relation to Timor.
It doesn't matter not knowing exactly where we are because we don't know where anything else is either. We don't know where any of the islands that we're going to are, and knowing our exact position is really would be very satisfying, but is not actually necessary for navigation at this point. So we're staring hopelessly into the different distance. We've got all three sextants out and all three operators here. There's absolutely nothing to be measured and nothing to be done at this moment, and watch this space. I mean, what more can one say?
We've been drifting for over a week now on an almost dead flat sea. Yet this evening, the gentlest of breezes is beginning to swell the sails. Encouraged, we man the yardarms to drop all the canvas we have. This morning, we awake to the great sight of land on the horizon. At last, it's Timor.
We were expecting this last night, really. We got well south of the island because of the winds, and we've been moving northwards through the night, and I figured it would turn up at daylight, so I came up early, and sure enough it did. There it is.
You're pleased?
Very, very pleased. So I think when everybody gets up, which will be fairly soon, I'm hoping that the combination of the sight of land and the feel of the deck moving and the ship actually going somewhere will brighten a few spirits where they need it.
Tremendous. It's certainly good for us. I think everybody is very cheered seeing land this morning. I think it's splendid. For Cook's men, it must have been attractive. There were a lot of them sick at this point, but Cook decided not to stop at Timor. And that's when the real problem, I think, began, that he talks about, the problem with not just bodies, but minds. We're obviously lusting for fruit and fresh vegetables, and he wasn't going to stop. So this was a tease, really, for Cook's men, but not for us. It's just lovely to see land.
I was strongly requested by some of my officers to go to the Dutch settlement on Timor for refreshments, but this I refused to comply with, knowing that the Dutch look upon all Europeans with a jealous eye who come among these islands, and our necessities were not so great to oblige me to put into a place where I might expect to be but indifferently treated.
We're in Indonesian territorial waters, and it's the normal rule of the sea. Fly the courtesy flag, or the flag of the nation in whose waters you are.
Suddenly, without warning, a fresh wind blows up. Not a light breeze, but a proper wind, just as it did for Cook in the same place in the 18th century.
And brace is keeping the yard square as it goes up. Easing your... Come on away, ship! 015. Going your four course, holding on your clothes, easing your tack and shake. Pull away. 2-6, heave. 2-6, heave. 2-6, heave. 2-6, heave. Hold it down, hold. 2-6, heave. 2-6, heave. 2-6, heave. Hold him mizzen top. Now get home. Hold away. Hold it. 2-6, heave. 2-6, heave. 2-6, heave. 2-6, heave. 2-6, heave.
can see, we're probably at the highest point in the ship. There's no higher than this. All at the aid of a safety net and brains. Because you can't be clever coming up here doing this. Yeah, I love it up here. Every time I go up there, I absolutely adore it. It's a pain in the ass getting up here, right enough, but once you're up this world, well worth it. You can sit up here for hours. You can probably sort the major problems of the world out, sit up here, but once you get down to deck level, you forget it all.
The wind stays fresh for most of the day and carries us over 30 nautical miles. By late afternoon, we arrive at our destination, the tropical island of Savu.
It's been very exhilarating, very exhilarating. It's also, it's nice to reach a strange shore that you nevertheless want to be, you feel it's somehow familiar because you've longed for the shore, you know. So exotic but familiar at the same time. No, it's great.
Cook arrived here on September the 17th, 1770. Some of the ship's crew were now suffering badly from scurvy and a terrible longing for home, itself a symptom of scurvy. So the fact that Savu was, like Timor, a Dutch possession now made no difference to James Cook. He and Joseph Banks, like us, were overawed with what they saw.
We saw on the island houses, coconut trees and flocks of cattle grazing. These were temptations hardly to be withstood by people in our situation, especially as we are but in a very indifferent state of health, and I may say, mind too.
The appearance of the island excelled in beauty anything we had seen.
This is a beautiful place. It's a part of the world I've always sort of dreamt of coming to. Almost untouched islands. Yeah, it's beautiful.
This one sort of jumps out at you. It says, tropics, you know, come play with me.
It has the verdure of Europe, set off by the stately pillars of India. By that I mean the palms, which for straightness and proportion excel all the palms I have ever seen.
Well, that's lovely, isn't it? You can't get much better land than this. Look at that beach. I haven't seen any break in the beach yet. The whole of the island seems to be one big beach.
It requires a poetical imagination to describe, and a mind not unacquainted with such sights to conceive.
This island looks so beautiful. I wish there were lounge chairs there.
Cook uses a very strange phrase when he gets here. He says, it was a temptation not to be resisted. Now remember that he had not stopped at Timor. He sailed straight past. All the men wanted to get home, you know, sick with nostalgia. But here, it seemed as if everybody wanted to stop. He said it was a temptation not to be withstood. A temptation not to be withstood. Isn't that a strange phrase? I mean, he doesn't say it was an opportunity to be taken. It was, you know, a convenience we were going to avail ourselves of. He said it was a temptation not to be withstood.
The evening draws in, and we decide to wait until tomorrow before we go ashore. As we settle down for the night, a distant prayer call is carried across the water by a gentle sea breeze. The sound perhaps heard by Cook and his men. When the Endeavour crew finally came ashore after so many weeks at sea without landfall, Savu was a paradise that promised much. Eager ourselves to taste the delights of Savu, having been without fresh fruit and vegetables for 2 weeks now since we left Australia, we row ashore in relays. a 2-mile row against the current. The islanders of Savu watch as we row in from a ship that only their great-great-great-great-grandparents would have seen before.
Does anyone own these lands? It's like I came to Queen Elizabeth.
As we come ashore, we walk straight into a village market. Fruit, vegetables, animals, wines and fish.
Isn't it amazing? Oh yeah. There's more of that.
Chilies, beautiful hot chilies.
People have been coming to this weekly market from all the surrounding islands for longer than anyone can remember. Hundreds of years.
The natives are of a dark brown colour with long, lank hair. Their clothing is a piece of cotton cloth wrapped around their middle and over their shoulders, with turbans tied around their heads.
The productions of this island are buffaloes, sheep, hogs, fowls, horses, asses, maize, guinea corn, rice, limes, oranges, mangoes, plantains, watermelons. As well, there is areca, tobacco, cotton, indigo, and a little cinnamon.
These chilies look good. They look like the bird's eye, the really hot bird's eye chilies. They'd be good.
They all, both men and women, young and old, chew of the betel nut and a sort of white lime, which I believe is made from coral stone. This has such an effect upon them.
Lucy, our botanical artist, is trying betel nut for herself. A mild drug chewed to this day by the islanders.
I'm going to chew it. I'm going to wet this and then dip it in the lime.
It has to be accompanied by a local green vegetable dipped in lime.
What are you eating, Lucy?
Betel nut.
It takes 5 to 10 minutes for betel to take effect.
Beautiful snake beans. Really beautiful. Crisp.
Oh, and limes. Limes. Okay, we've got some fruit. Well, we've got a tomato and we've got some limes. Do you want some tomatoes as well? Okay, here we are, scurvied seamen, right? We've been at sea for 2 weeks. And we're going to consume these with emotions of voluptuous luxury. Oh, they're very good. Oh.
Sorry,
Flavour some? Oh, wow.
Oh wow, it wasn't very neat. I think you're supposed to be a bit neater than that. It makes your mouth tingle.
And is it, I mean, what effect is it meant to have?
Soporific. Just meant to chill you out, you know. Make you really relax. I'm a bit out of it.
Take some back to the ship, I think. Ah, wow. Very powerful. Yeah, very powerful indeed. But it's curing me of scurvy. My dream is fading.
The nostalgia is diminishing.
Yeah, home, who cares?
Not everyone, though, is after tropical fruits.
We paid $5 US for 3 beers. For lukewarm beers. And now we're going for round 2.
5?
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Red hot, just how I like it.
So what's it feel like, Lucy?
I can't say because my mouth's gone numb. Let's look at the teeth and that's how you know who's been chewing it and who hasn't. Burning now. Sorry. I feel like I'm making a real mess. It's so red.
Well, what they're doing is they're harvesting the sap from the fan palm, and this is the thing that Banks was raving about. He couldn't say enough about this plant.
Well, because it gave sugar.
Yeah.
It gave sugar, it gave an alcoholic drink, it gave a non-alcoholic drink.
Yeah, and then also the fact that every single bit of the plant was useful in some way, shape or form. So do I just...
Okay. Please. Sweet?
Oh, it's lovely.
What seems to be the natural production of the island, and which they have in the greatest abundance, is the fan palm. They yield the treble advantage of fruit, liquor and sugar. The leaves serve to thatch their houses and to make baskets, umbrellas, cups and tobacco pipes.
We've been told a special ceremony has been arranged to greet us and mark the second coming of the Endeavour. It's a short drive by open lorry.
What have you got there?
Oh, thanks, Jason. I'll see you later. Oh, you don't know how much I've been craving tomatoes. You said, yeah. Oh my God, that is so good. Oh.
Don't take much to turn us on, does it?
Oh, that's so good. I could hug you.
Do.
I can live without the sweeties.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can just about manage without the beer, but the tomato.
I think a gin and tonic wouldn't come amiss, would it?
Don't stop.
At 8 o'clock in the morning?
Tom, give them a banana.
So attractive. What is it?
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Give it a go.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God. Oh, dear. I think it just kicked in.
What is it?
It's beetle nut. Oh, my God. Sorry. Oh, I'm a bit hot.
All of a sudden I don't want one now. For some reason you can poke it.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Cook took 9 of these cattle aboard, which he called buffalo. But every time they slaughtered them, they got miserable because the weight of the beast was always much less than they thought. They slaughtered one that was only 160 pounds weight.
The natives showed the greatest inclination imaginable to supply us with whatever they had, selling us products as fast as they could bring these things down. I might have purchased as many buffaloes as I pleased, for they drove them down by herds. I got as many as I well knew what to do with, and likewise a number of fowls and a large quantity of syrup.
Oh, God alive, what are we eating?
Stop jiggling.
Oh.
Turn around with Mike Tyson.
That's nice.
You thought I was dignified.
We are treated to a welcoming display of song and dance. We're also treated to a never-ending supply of refreshing palm juice, made on the island since well before the white man arrived.
palm juice is the common drink of everyone upon the island, and a very pleasant one. It was so to us, if at first rather too sweet.
The music, the atmosphere, the very tradition draws us all ever deeper into the Savu that Cook encountered back in 1770.
That was beautiful. Oh my God, I could live here. Wow. Just an amazing ceremony, amazing dance, great people, beautiful people.
It's going to be hard to get back on the boat. Oh, it was magical. Absolutely magical. Such beautiful people. And I mean, it's been just an incredible day wandering through the market and then coming here and seeing this. It's such a warm welcome as well for strangers arriving on a boat out of the blue. It's just really quite heartwarming.
In return for their incredible hospitality, we're taking some of the dancers and singers out to see the ship for themselves. For the inhabitants of Savu, the Endeavour is an important part of their own history.
There you go.
Thank you.
Derek.
You can try it if you want.
Ini
It's very loud.
Ako sa kirita.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Kada ko. Lunch. Lunchtime.
Where did you come from? Australia?
America.
America?
Yeah.
America.
Yeah.
Nice. Very far.
Very far.
The people of Savu have given us some of their famously alcoholic palm wine as a gift. We want to give them something in return.
Ben, what are we giving them? More fish, some of the dried salted fish that unfortunately is not very nice for Western palate. So hopefully the people from Savu will enjoy it more than we do.
The dreaded dried fish that nobody ever seems to want.
It looks a cross between crocodile and snake in my opinion.
Bye-bye, Henry.
Yeah.
But in this case, we seem to have some takers. The people of Savu insist this is just what they like best. Well, maybe they're just being polite.
It's just cold. That's really all I care about. It's icy cold.
The waist.
Good or otherwise, it's cold.
I think that this was truly the most exotic experience that we'll have had on the voyage. I think we encountered a culture that was was integral, hadn't been invaded by tourism, hadn't been spoilt by imperialism. So my sense is that the local culture there was never really dented. It's always been continuous. I think that was why it seemed today so recognizable from Banks and Cook's accounts. It's the same place. The people are doing basically the same thing. So I think we saw something very rare and we were incorporated into it, a great gift.
Once more, we're under sail and underway. But those of us not on watch are finding sanctuary in the darkness. And just as Cook's men did in the palm wine from Savu, lethal stuff known as tuak.
Ah, that man's got the little red light up, which means infrared. He's always got a strange smile. He's a very strange boy.
On Cook's ship, alcohol rations were 1 gallon of beer per man per day, or else 1 pint of wine, or half a pint of rum. Tonight, you could argue, we're just getting a real insight into an 18th century sailor's state of mind. Next week, hangovers cured, we head for our final destination, Jakarta. But as we keep finding on the high seas, nothing ever seems to go to plan.